are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. You can follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. We are doing a mailbag show today. So everyone that sent in questions, thank you for doing that. We've got a lot of great ones and a lot of fun things to get to on today's show. Today's episode is brought to you by Get Upside. Go ahead and download the Get Upside app for free and use the promo code touchdown to get up to 25 cents off your first gallon of gas when you fill up per gallon. 25 cents per gallon on that fill up. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen of the day. I've got my coffee right next to me, as a matter of fact. So Locked On Packers, a little coffee, maybe a little granola. Great way to start the day. All right, let's get to the questions because we got a lot of great ones. I got a couple different versions of this one. So I want to start here because I think it is the question of the offseason. This one is from Jordan. He says, can this team win it all with an average QB? And if so, which one would make the most sense to trade for with Rodgers? Henry Hunt asks, if it is the start of the Jordan Love era, what do you think the ceiling for this team is? Also, what is the floor? Assuming we try and stay competitive with our roster decisions, which I assume we will. So, these are not the same question, but I think my answer, or the fact that I have bucketed them together, tells you what I think the answer is. If Jordan Love reached his full potential, Green Bay next year could win a Super Bowl. And that's not because I think Jordan Love in the first year as a starter would be otherworldly. I don't think he would be Patrick Mahomes, 50 touchdowns. No, I think that the rest of this team is good enough. Let's say Aaron Rodgers decides to retire. There's going to be plenty of Aaron Rodgers stuff today. Don't worry about it. Or it's a trade. But let's for the sake of argument, go with the retire route. But they're able to work out a deal to keep Davante Adams. This team is basically the same as it was last year, minus Aaron Rodgers. And if they're healthy, they're really, really good. They're really, really good. I mean, the idea that the Packers without Aaron Rodgers are somehow some bottom of the barrel team is just not true. Now, that's not to take away anything from his MVP case. I said many times on the show that I thought he was the MVP and should be the MVP. But baseline quarterback play and a hot streak is all you need. That's all you need. Jimmy Garoppolo did not play great for the 49ers last year, but their defense carried them. And it wasn't even their run game late. It was a couple big plays a game from Deebo Samuel or George Kittle or one of their guys. And the defense was red hot. They weren't red hot the whole season. That wasn't a defense that played awesome all year. If the Packers defense played the way that they did in the divisional game for the rest of the postseason, they probably could have won it all with a B- quarterback play. They didn't even get a B- in the divisional game, which is one of the reasons why they lost. Now, this also, I think, requires Matt LaFleur to take a little bit of a step because, I got some questions about this, some of the adjustments in the game. The Packers did not do a good job this year of making adjustments in game. They did last year, by the way. And even in 2019, they did. They would come out of halftime, that first drive of the third quarter, it felt like it was automatic. They were going to score. And it never felt that way last year. I don't know why that is. So this team, talented enough, if all you do is swap out the quarterback, yes, you could get a B- from this team if they stayed very healthy. And to win a Super Bowl, you need that kind of luck. This team has the talent to do that. We also got a report on Thursday, that Marquez Valdes-Scantling said the Packers are definitely interested in bringing him back, that he would want to be back even with a change at quarterback. So maybe there'll be less upheaval at that position than we initially thought. The TLDR of this is going to be a talented enough team no matter what. Now, if you lose Davante Adams too, with no real plan to replace him, that suddenly becomes problematic. I don't really right now want to go down the whole rabbit hole of, okay, but what if it's Jerry Jeudy and now it's 3 first-round picks and someone else? What does this team look like? That it's just too many moving pieces. But let me answer the Jordan Love part of this. The ceiling is they can win the Super Bowl. With everyone healthy, they can win the Super Bowl. The floor is, I think on talent, I don't think Jordan Love will be bad play to play, game to game. I think the Deshaun Kaiser outcome for him, based on what we've seen so far, is just not likely at all. I think worst case, you're getting, I guess I don't even want to really go down that road, but in year one, I think the worst case is you're getting a early Goff-like performance from Jordan Love, where there's some games where he throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and you're like, man, this is great. And then there's some games where he throws for 160 yards and 2 picks, and you're just like, what is going on? I think there'll be some volatility. Now, he doesn't have the kind of issues that Goff has had over the years, where he's not throwing to the right guy or he can't get to his second and third reads. That's the sign of progress that I've been encouraged by with Jordan Love, is saying, okay, he's consistently throwing to the right guy. To me, that matters a lot. And I think that bodes well for him moving forward. Now, if the Packers are going to make a deal with the Raiders, for example, in an Aaron Rodgers deal, maybe you could get a Derek Carr back. I think that would make sense. This Tennessee report is out there. I don't know that there's a lot of credence to that one, but it's certainly out there. And if you could get Ryan Tannehill, yeah, you feel pretty good about this team and their ability to compete next year. I mean, Ryan Tannehill and this Packers team, he just took a less talented team to the playoffs, now in a much worse division, but I guess it's not much worse, right? So though that's the level of quarterback that I think that they could get back. But if that's what anything lower than that, especially, if you're starting to look at like the Jimmy G, Baker Mayfield tier, I feel like you would just roll with Love. I think that's the best option. All right, our friend Jen Curtin wants to know, what are your thoughts on the chances Cobb is here next year based on what we've seen from Amari so far? I don't think those are related, frankly. And I think Randall Cobb is gone. I think he's gone. I don't see the circumstance under which he comes back. I think this was, by his accounting, a great season for him. He was very happy to be back in Green Bay. Does he retire? Does he sort of do the thing where he says, I'm retiring, but you could pull a James Jones at any time, where if the Packers need him, he could come out and play, and he stays in Green Bay and does that whole thing? That's on the table, but they save almost $7 million by cutting him. I don't think they would trade him unless they traded him to wherever Rodgers is going, which I do not think, by the way, they will do with Davante Adams, something that we will talk about later in the show. Amari Rodgers has not shown anything that suggests he's an NFL player. I mean, nothing. The fact that the Packers trusted him enough to do the punt returns and kick returns is not that. It's not proof of anything other than the Packers were bad on special teams. Their coach got fired, and they didn't have anybody else that they thought could do it. We didn't see anything from Amari Rodgers. This is purely a financial decision on moving on from you're a beloved player. And it's just the unfortunate reality of the business. All right, this is from Chris. He says, is promoting essentially the same offensive personnel, which was not produced high-level offense in 2021, a good idea? And is that a referendum on Matt LaFleur's ability to hire the right guys? What needs to change for this offense to get over I'm not sure exactly what he means, but the F it where is 17 offense. I knew I read this question before we did it. It made sense to me at the time. So I posed this question to Lily Zhao earlier this week. Is there a fear of stagnation, right? By just bringing everyone back? Well, you're going to have a new tight ends coach. Justin Outen is going to be the offensive coordinator in Denver, and you're going to have a new QB coach. They did not promote those guys from within. Adam Stenavich, offensive line coach, he will have a much bigger voice in the room. That changes the dynamic a little bit. Jason Vrabel will have a much bigger voice in the room as the passing game coordinator versus the receivers coach. That's a big deal. And then a new quarterbacks coach, whoever that is going to be. I think what you need are really, it's twofold. You need a quarterback that's going to trust the offense and run it, actually run it. And you need to be able to be a little bit more diverse. Green Bay got really reliant on stuff that worked. I mean, the stuff worked that they were running all year. I would like to see a little bit more creative situations in times when the offense is stagnating. Okay, you need something. Okay, here's a special. Here's a trick play. Here's a new, we didn't see unscouted looks against the 49ers. We didn't see the kind of stuff that you expected with an extra week to prepare. And that's the thing that is potentially most concerning about what that preparation was. I think the Packers thought that they could just do what they always do and that they had answers and that they could just go out there and execute. And that's just not the case. And I do wonder if that changes, if the quarterback changes. If now all of a sudden the coaches feel like, okay, we have to do more. The Sean McVay thing of we have to do more, so we're going to. Whereas with Rodgers, it's more of, hey, we can just trust him to do the thing. Although in 2020, they did the opposite. They said, we're going to do more. The offense, let the scheme work for you. And he had the best season of his career going back to maybe 2014. And I think he was better than in 2014, frankly. I think 2020 is up there with 2011 as the best season Aaron Rodgers has ever played. And he just wasn't that last year. Now, I also push back on the idea that they were not a high-level offense. They were number one in EPA per play last year when Aaron Rodgers played. So I don't let the playoff performance color too much of the way that you remember this Packers offense. Today's episode is brought to you by Get Upside. My listeners are earning cash back for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and use the promo code TOUCHDOWN for 25 cents per gallon or more on your first fill up. Cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use promo code TOUCHDOWN for 25 cents per gallon or more on your first tank. You can download it. You can take the money, put it wherever you want. Bank account, PayPal, Amazon gift card. It is money to do a thing you were already going to do. Use the promo code TOUCHDOWN to get that 25 cents per gallon or more on your first fill up. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the playoffs. The big game means tons of opportunities to make some money. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news all season. It's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pros and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new and amazing offers for the 2022 season. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, some more questions here. This is from Passive on Twitter. He said, will the Packers finally draft a receiver in the first round, especially with MVS possibly gone? I mentioned the report that MVS has interest in coming back and that the Packers have interest in keeping him. We'll see how that actually plays out in terms of the financials of it. But I think there's a chance. I do think there is a chance. This is an interesting receiver class that we'll talk a lot more about as we head toward the actual draft. It is very much a beauty in the eye of the beholder kind of draft. There is no CeeDee Lamb. There is no Jerry Jeudy. There is no Justin Jefferson is probably even overstating it because Justin Jefferson was not universally thought of as a lock top 15 kind of pick. Wasn't a top 15 pick. But either with CeeDee Lamb, I thought CeeDee Lamb was a bona fide, no doubt number one receiver. I don't know that there is one of those in this class. There are a couple guys that I think are first round talents. I don't know, especially given the injury to one of the best players in the class, if this is the kind of class that can provide you that kind of high level option. At the same time, there are some really intriguing guys who could be going in the first round. Jahan Dotson, Drake London, Garrett Wilson. I mean, what is the situation with the rest of the offense, I think, is going to be a question that they have to answer. Is David Bakhtiari right that it's just going to take some rest to get his knee right? Or is this a concern for this team longer term? I think that's a real question that this team has to answer. And we don't know, but that could make, let's say, an offensive tackle something that's more likely in the first round. Is this the time for a defensive lineman where the Packers have gone in the past in situations like this? You've got Jamison Williams in Alabama coming off an ACL injury. He might have been wide receiver 1 in this class had he not had that injury. So a lot of things that are out there that are available to the Packers. I don't think it will happen in the first round. It could. But I think depending on what happens with the Smith brothers, I think edge makes a lot of sense. Offensive tackle makes a lot of sense. Safety is the dark horse, and there are 3 or 4 guys at that position where I think the Packers could really find good value at the end of the first round, someone that can come in right away and free you up to be a little bit more creative with Darnell Savage, a player we're also going to talk about a little bit more later in the show. So I think it's on the table. I think it becomes more on the table if you get the 9th pick from Denver. I think it becomes more on the table if you trade Davante Adams. But I think Davante Adams is going to be back. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be back. And that makes it easier for you to say, okay, well, let's see what the best player available is. And if it's a receiver, great. I think they will take a pass catcher in this draft, whether it's a receiver or a tight end. And they're taking a tight end. They're taking a tight end in this draft. Write it down in ink. It is happening. They are taking a tight end. But they're taking a pass catcher for sure. But they're taking a tight end in this draft. They are. Mercedes Lewis said he's going to keep playing. Josiah DeGuara. But their position group there has gotten a little thin. Dominique Dafty can be brought back on the cheap, but he's just a guy. I think they're going to let Big Bob Tunyon walk. And that leaves them with thinness at that position, considering it's a position where they want to go a lot of 12 personnel. They like to cycle guys in and out, and they could use a consistent weapon there. The problem is tight ends, generally speaking, they don't pop in year one. Even the best ones don't pop in year one. So how much can it be a help to the 2022 Packers? That's a pretty big question, and we'll see. All right, Jake Lisco, my friend from Locked On Bengals. Jake, shouldn't you be getting ready for a Super Bowl? Come on. Now you're just rubbing it in. He says, what will the Bet Online over-under be for the Packers in 2022? Okay, he's being a good corporate sponsor, a good corporate partner. I see you, Jake. This is an interesting question because if you go back to last offseason, the Packers didn't have, for long stretches, a particularly high win total. I mean, there were times when it was like 9, 8, 8.5 when we didn't know if Aaron Rodgers was going to come back. So where do you set it to build in that uncertainty? I think with Jordan Love, this could be a 9 or 10 win team. If you get really lucky and Love is like, upper quartile of his eventual outcomes, you could get to 11. So with that in mind, I mean, I think 8 is probably the right win total. 8.5. Remember, we just saw this. It just happened. Now, is this team better than maybe we thought, or maybe than Vegas thought? Now, if you lose Adams, if you're thinking you're losing Rodgers and you're losing Adams at the same time, maybe you have to go to 8. Maybe you have to go to 7.5, something like that. I think that's the right number right now, because we have to bake in that uncertainty. We don't have to get too far down the line of like how the odds are calculated and stuff like this. But I think it has to be 8 or 8.5, because then you're insulating yourself. If Rodgers comes back, you can always bump it as soon as that is official. And I also think it's a good number for if Jordan Love is the quarterback for Green Bay. Plus, there is a lot of uncertainty about what this team is going to look like next year in terms of what players they're able to keep, what players just end up walking, because that is how this works and that's how free agency is. So I think it ends up landing somewhere, at least once it's posted, and I haven't seen it posted anywhere, in that range, that 8.5 range. All right, Chasen asks, this is a related question: are Rodgers and Adams mutually exclusive this offseason where one goes, both goes. I'm not sure that's quite how that works, but no. If a team wants to offer a Godfather package, let's say Denver says, all right, here's 3 firsts. Here's Jerry Jeudy, Patrick Surtain, and Noah Fant. You can have all that, and then we'll take Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. Okay. Cool. That's not happening. And even if Rodgers says, I want to go to Denver and I want to bring Davante Adams with me, the answer is no. No. The Packers have, again, and it's silly almost that we have to do this again, but he's under contract. And Davante's not, but they can tag him and they can tag and trade him. So the Packers hold the cards here. Even if Aaron Rodgers says, I want out, trade me to Denver. First of all, they do not have to do that, because if Rodgers retires, it will cost the Packers on the cap, unless he restructures his deal pre-trade, the same amount if the Packers trade him. So now they're not getting the haul, but they would say, okay, Rodgers, retire then. We dare you because we don't think you're going to do that. And by the way, he's not. For all the reasons we talked about last offseason, he's not retiring. So if you're the Packers, you say, okay, give me a list of 5 teams and we'll figure out the best deal for us. That has to be what it is, because he's under contract. It's the same thing with Davante Adams. So I think the more likely scenario in a trade situation is the Packers say, okay, Aaron, we'll send you somewhere. We're going to send you to the place that gives us the most stuff. And if they also want to give us a bunch of stuff for Davante Adams and they have the best offer for Davante, then we'll do that too. I think more likely you would get something like a Aaron Rodgers trade to Denver, let's say. 3 firsts, Jerry Jeudy, and a second, maybe something like that. It's going to be a lot. Everyone who thinks it's not going to be a lot, it's going to be a lot if the Packers end up doing a deal. It will be a lot. It will be a Godfather offer. In the Adams case, I think it becomes, okay, Raiders. The Raiders say, here's our first and Trey Merrick, or they're not going to give up Darren Waller, but here's a first and a young piece that we think you like. Nate Hobbs had a good rookie season. Maybe that's an interesting piece. It's got to be something like that. A young, cheap, potential contributor for the Packers. Because remember, Odell Beckham got a first and a third. Everyone knew he wanted out. Amari Cooper got a first. Everyone knew that he was getting traded. So a first is the starting point. Now, then you have to pay him a boatload of money, but they could negotiate. That's part of the negotiation built into the way the system works. You tag someone with the idea that you're going to trade them. That allows them to now negotiate with other teams. Here's what the compensation is going to be. Here's what you're going to pay me. And you move it that way. The only circumstance that they're a package deal is if someone offers them the moon. Now, is it the case that if the Packers trade Aaron Rodgers because Rodgers wants to be traded, that Davante's like, I'm out? I think probably. So that's why it's a pretty big domino to get Aaron Rodgers to come back. But again, the Packers hold the cards because they can tag him and they can trade him and they can decide where he's going to go. And they can also offer him a bunch of money and try and convince him to stay. So all of those things are on the table. The short answer is no. It is not the case that they are a package deal. In fact, I think it is highly, highly, highly unlikely that they are a package deal in terms of their next destination. Is it a package deal that if you don't get the first, you probably are not getting the second? Probably. Today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar ever. It's the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. New year means New Year's resolutions. How are you doing with those? It's been a month. Are you eating healthier? Are you working out more? Are you drinking water? Are you getting enough sleep? Well, Built Bar can help you do at least one of those things. Eat a little bit healthier and still eat something that tastes delicious. They are the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, but still packs in all the nutrients that you want with none of the junk that you don't want. High in protein, high in fiber, low in net carbs, low in calories, low in sugar. How do they do it? I don't know. It's magic, but they do it. And these things deliver. They are delicious. You can go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKS15 for 15% off. That's promo code LOCKS15 for 15% off at built.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. So why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questions and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? You don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. Why not go to a family business that's been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years? They have everything you need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oils, even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website and see everything available for your car or truck, and write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right. Joe at work wants to know, will the Packers exercise their fifth-year option on Darnell Savage? JDS says, same question, but instead of will, should. Yes. If for no other reason than they don't have anyone else, let's start there. Adrian Amos may not be on this team in a year. Darnell Savage has shown a ton of talent, a ton of playmaking. He has terrific ball skills and instincts. He's an inconsistent tackler. And the playmaking fell off last year. In the second half of 2021, of 2020, he was unbelievable. Him and Adrian Amos were the best safety duo by Pro Football Focus in the second half of that season. They were awesome down the stretch. He was making plays once a game, getting picks and diving in front of passes. I mean, he was incredible against the Titans in that game in the snow. Incredible. He was incredible against Minnesota this past season in Minnesota. Had a pick called back on a garbage roughing the passer call. Had a pick that would have sealed it that he dropped, kind of. He dropped another one in that game. His ball skills were a little off this past year, and I don't know if it was adjusting to the scheme. I don't know if the scheme is the best fit for him as a split safety. I don't know if that's the best place for him to be. I think he is. They could use him more robbing the middle of the field. I think that's something that they could consider. I would like to see them consider him in the star. I mean, I think the best way you could allocate your cover people is Jair on the outside, Eric Stokes on the outside, and Darnell Savage in the slot. Not because he's a great man-to-man player, although he was at Maryland, but because he's so instinctive as a lurk defender and overhang defender. And it also means he's not having to defend the run from depth. When you're an inconsistent tackler, the best thing and the easiest thing to do, this is something that they did, by the way, with like Jabril Peppers, is when you bring him closer to the action, he can just use that speed, fly downhill and make a play. And he's not having to go one-on-one with someone with a two-way go at a full head of steam. It's more, okay, I've got you in the backfield. You're going 45, 50%, and I'm going 100 miles an hour and I can make a play. And if I don't, there's still help behind. I think that part of it makes more sense. In a weird way, although he's not built like a box safety, it's sort of where he plays the best, underneath, able to undercut routes and rob the middle of the field, cover underneath even. I think that's where he's best. I don't know if that's how they're going to deploy him though. But they love him. They think the world of his talent, and he's a draft pick. You have to at least give him the fifth-year option. That's why you have the fifth-year option. And I think that's the way that this plays out. All right, Jamie, last one here. Jamie says, poof, I'm a genie. What 3 wishes am I granting you? 2 Packers related and 1 anything else. I mean, the easy anything else one is just like, bang, COVID's gone. Everyone's fine. This is great. Something like that. I have to think a lot deeper into it. Maybe, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind. The Packers one, I assume we are talking about like reasonable things. Like, it's not just all of a sudden, okay, Reggie White is on this team now. So if we can just change 2 things, right? I think, poof, Brandon Bostic catches the onside kick in 2014. I guess it was 2015, but the 2014 season. And it's a tough one. How about the Packers, instead of trading up for Jordan Love, trade up for Justin Jefferson? How about that? That's kind of lame. Like maybe bigger picture, like Nick Collins never hurts his neck, because I think the Packers probably win the 2011 Super Bowl if that happens. Let's go with those for now. So Brandon Bostic catches the onside kick and Nick Collins never hurts his neck. Also because Nick Collins was on his way to like a borderline Hall of Fame career, and it's just brutal that was robbed of him. I think it would have been great to see him play for the next 5 years with Charles Woodson and Jamal Williams and Sam Shields. I think that defense would have been so much better. And yeah, they beat the Giants that year, and the Giants beat everyone that year. So those are my 2. Poof. COVID's gone. Brandon Bostic catches it. Nick Collins never gets hurt. Poof. Done. Great. Thanks to everyone this week. This is a tough week that I thought we'd be prepping for the Super Bowl, but we're not. The reality is the Packers didn't play well enough. But I will be at Radio Row next week. Hopefully have some interviews from some Packers players that are going to be there. Some other people who might be there that you might find interesting. So we will have all of that from LA next week. And I'm working on another guest who I think you will find very interesting. That will be hopefully after the Super Bowl. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to hit us up on the Locked On Packers fan hotline, you can do that, 920-341-3775, to stay Locked On Packers.